Okay, so today we're going to riff off some of the things we've talked about in other videos. Namely, again, this stat from Barna that reported that 96% of pastors in 2020, during that period of time that were asked, were doing online services. And something that I want to point out and something I want to kind of flesh out as far as an idea and a train of thought is that what was included in those 96% of pastors' online services was a variety of things. What we don't have is a definition of what is an online service. What we did have prior to internet church or prior to media-centric church like TV or radio even, is that a church had to have, a congregation in a place. It had a definition, and it had an understood definition that had limitations. You couldn't have a church that was, multiple buildings outside of technology. You had two separate churches. Congregations is probably a better understanding of this word, and I understand that these words have changed meaning, have flexible meanings depending on their use, all that kind of stuff, which is a whole other problem. But when it comes to online church, we have this issue that there is no real hard definition of what online church is or isn't. A Zoom call with a pastor, leading the Zoom call and doing a sermon and, singing some songs on his end so that everybody else can hear with their channels muted, that's online church. And so is a stream service on YouTube or, Facebook Live or any of the other places where you could do a live stream service. That's also online church. And what's been kind of propagated is also the idea that if you have a recorded service and you stream it again for a congregation that would normally meet at a certain time but can't meet in person, that constitutes online church. Or if you have a service that was streamed live to a congregation but you have members that weren't in attendance, that if they watch it on Thursday the next week, that is also online church. And this idea that there isn't a definition, but there's kind of like a cloud of, meaning inside the word online church kind of points towards two things. One, that online church is a container word. It's a word that we put our emotional investment, our meaning, our hope into, regardless of what it actually speaks to. And container words are dangerous. They can get you into a lot of trouble because they don't allow for one-sided container word use. If you're using a word like a container word, someone else will be using it as a container word too, and there's a high likelihood that the two of you will not be using that container word in the same context in the same way. So that's one issue of this. But the other words is like, if there is no line of what's inappropriate, is there a line to say that any of it's appropriate? That if there's no start line, there is no finish line. If online church doesn't have a beginning and an end, then there is nothing that isn't online church in an online content when it comes to the pieces of church that we're kind of putting into the technology and the use of that technology online. You can't say that a person isn't going to church by watching a sermon from a year ago as opposed to the sermon from that week, if you don't have the definitions that say online church is weekly attendance and past a week it's not. And there's no authority here. There's no instruction from scripture on what online church is supposed to be, because online church isn't mentioned in scripture. In fact, I would argue that it can't be mentioned from scripture, and that any attempts to make scripture mention online church or the things we're doing as online church actually form a type of eisegesis that can be applied to a lot of things, and dangerously so. So that's what I want to get you guys thinking about today, is that if there's no start line, there is no finish line. We have no boundaries for what online church is or isn't that don't lead us to a path back to in-person services, even if we are recording them, being what constitutes as church, and everything else being additions to that. Because I think that's what our cloudy, hazy lack of definition in the online church suggests, simply by doing it. So let me know what you think. If you can, make sure you share this video, especially if you're a pastor. That'd be awesome. I love to talk to other pastors about this and to really kind of flesh out this. The whole reason I'm doing these videos is so that I can be a part of the conversation and help establish a theology of the internet, theology of tech, all that kind of stuff. So great talking to you guys, and we'll see you soon.